This is Octave Leap. Innovation, regeneration, and human optimization.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Octave Leap live stream. Got a few upgrades now so I can see your comments in real time, and I can actually show them on the screen. So I can actually show the comments now. This is amazing. It's called Super Chats. So yeah, if I'm reading your questions, I can now put them on the screen. And I also wanted to say, yes, and as Lee is saying, let's create. It is the time we use the online world for the greatest good. Exactly. And that's exactly what we're talking about today. It's being able to take your gifts and share them and use that to imbue the world with more positivity and more connection and really move us forward in the direction that we all collectively want to go. So it's a really exciting time to do that. More people than ever are having this dialogue now about going online, especially the minute people started remote working en masse. I heard more and more people say, why am I even working for this company anymore? Can't I just sit at home? This is awesome. And maybe go somewhere else or go to the beach or go to the country and work from there. And so it's a discussion that keeps coming up. And so today, we're going to kind of do this in two parts. The first part, I'm going to tell you a story. I'm going to tell you a story about how all this came about for me. And in part two, I'm going to share with you and go over in detail the top 5 things that biggest takeaways for starting an online business successfully. And these are practical strategies. These aren't just theories. They're also applied to a wide variety of different businesses. So I don't know if you're, a coach, or if you're selling a product, or, you're doing online education, but they should all apply to any of those circumstances. And it's good to see so many comments. Please keep the comments coming in. Please post your questions. It's always greatly appreciated. Okay, so I'm going to dive in here, and you're mostly going to see me for this presentation as well. As I'm going to make it more personal. I'm not going to hide behind a presentation as I sometimes do. We're just going to jump in here and have some fun with it. So, my story. This is the such an interesting beginning, because what happened was I was sort of working as an engineer, a geological engineer, doing groundwater protection in Canada. And I was just kind of doing this for 12 years. I'd run a bunch of side businesses online for fun, because I always had this dream of quitting and being able to sleep in and, travel and do all this stuff. So it was always humming since about 2010. I always dreamt of, being able to live my own life and not having to show up at an office and not having to listen to anybody else. So it was there, and I had tried it out before, but basically I was pretty committed to do my work, 70 hours a week, sometimes 80 hours a week out in the field. And I got a call once. And in this call, it was from a company I used to work for, and they had a vacancy in Australia. And I got super excited. I'm like, oh man, I didn't care about the company. Actually, I kind of found the work boring, but I really wanted to go to Australia. I really wanted to travel. And so I took the job. And I spent the next 6 months closing down my life in Canada and moving to Australia. Well, I got to Australia. It was amazing. I enjoyed being there. I enjoyed the beaches. I enjoyed the experience. I enjoyed the people. And I hated my job. I ended up quitting within 9 months. And at the time I quit, it was literally one morning I woke up. And there's a feeling in my body that said, you can't do this anymore. And in fact, I wasn't even in Australia at the time. They'd sent me to a job in Arizona in the US. And I distinctly remember what was happening around there. They were doing groundwater investigations as part of an environmental thing, but they wanted to build a tailings dam to hold mine waste, and they wanted to take out a small community that was living in this valley. And I didn't feel good about that, obviously, but I was working this corporate job. And I remember one day, somebody from the company that we were working for, we're driving by this little community. It was like a commune of hippies. And this is, these hippies have no idea that we're just going to bulldoze them and put in the tailings pond. And I was horrified. I'm just like, those are more of my people than you are, you mining corporate CEO dude. I can't believe I'm going along with this. And it was the next day or the day after that I just said, okay, I'm quitting. And I gave my 2 weeks notice. No savings, no plan, no direction. I just knew I couldn't do that anymore. My body basically woke up and said, I can't participate with this. I can't partake in what these people are doing. I'm just exiting. It was scary, but I had so much conviction that it overrode the mind saying, you don't have enough savings. You don't know what you're going to do next. You don't have a plan. You don't have a network or anything else to tap into. You're just some dude who decided to quit his job. And life never really left me to fall in the gutter and starve or go homeless, because life wanted me to take that step. And it's led me to what I'm doing now, which is, honestly, I love doing this. Every little bit of what I do now is literally just the dreams I have and just making them into something that people participate into, whether it's Octave Leap, Crypto Revolution, creating music and soundscapes, or even doing coaching sessions. I mean, I love all the things that I do, and I am fairly fluid with what I do, but I enjoy them. And when I stop enjoying something, I stop doing it. But that was I could have never seen that when all this was going down many years, or I should say it was about 4 or 5 years ago. And what ended up happening was life ended up giving me sort of these little breadcrumbs. So I got these little gigs of, independent engineering work, or, I was trained in a few different things. So I get a couple clients by donation or something like that, always enough to kind of scrape by and pay the bills. The other thing too, is that I ended up moving because, I just decided that I'm going to go live in Indonesia. I'm going to go live in Bali. It's cheaper than living in the West. And it was quite a bit cheaper than living in Canada. So it was a good place to go and do a little bit of gig work and sort of live a little bit more of a stripped down lifestyle, for me at least. That might be different for other people. And of course, when I was there, I was meeting a lot of other people that were involved in startups and doing all sorts of stuff. And I actually got myself involved with so many different activities and so many different startups along the way. I was part of a neural entrainment startup that didn't go anywhere. I was writing copy for conscious entrepreneurs. What else did I try doing in that time? I was doing conscious business management consulting for, little, health juice bars and stuff like that. Whatever gigs that seemed to kind of show up in my life, I basically take on. And I'll say, none of them led to anything substantial, but going through that process taught me a lot, especially taught me a lot about entrepreneurialism. It taught me a lot about really having to show up and do something. It just wasn't, I wasn't working with the right fit of people. So I moved on from that. So I tried all this stuff, but mostly, I was resting during this time. I was living in Bali. I met Vanessa. She was working at this sound healing place called the Pyramids of Chi. And I was helping her out a little bit with that. And I really, really enjoyed that work. Actually, we got to do quite a bit of research on neural entrainment and sound therapy while there. And then, so I was trying all this stuff out in Indonesia, and we eventually went back to Cape Town, and lockdown happened. All my gig work dried up. All of it, like within a week, all gone. Zero income, lots of time. I had no money, plenty of time, locked in a house. And in South Africa, our lockdown lasted from March 25th until June 3rd. So it went end of March, April, May. It was pretty much 9 weeks long that we weren't allowed to leave our houses. The stupidest thing ever. But in that time, did I level up? I had no money. Remember, that's the important thing. I had not much money, enough to pay the rent on this place. And even then, I had to bargain to pay the rent with the landowner, because I'm like, look, it's difficult circumstance. And he was somewhat willing to work with me on that. So it all worked out in the end. But I spent those 9 weeks learning skills, and I learned so much stuff for so little that it was basically outpaced my entire university education. I felt it was more valuable than my university education, and I was more engaged in it as well. And so the kind of things that I ended up learning was how to create logos, how to create animated artwork, how to design things, how to make motion graphics. So like the little trailer, like you see at the beginning of this, I made that. And I had fun making that because I learned the skill of motion graphics. I actually thought at one point, hey, cool, maybe I'll just go and I'll do like freelance motion graphics and graphic design of this thing that I've done for a month. But then I'm like, nah, I don't really want to do that for other people. I was making music, and I was working, and I was actually doing music for relaxation music for spas and bespoke music for other people. And finally, what I got to was doing my podcast, the Blade and Chalice podcast. And I think that's where a lot of people know me from originally, because that podcast was a major stepping stone to finding an audience. So at this point, I had a bunch of skills. I could make some cool music, do some graphic design. I was having fun, and I had about 20 people that mostly I knew personally and were family and friends that actually followed me. But what ended up happening was I got asked to do a podcast, and I did an episode on the tarot, which I happen to know some things about. And it was such a hit. Like the interviewer was really good. It was called the Spiritual Shit Podcast. And the woman that ran it, Alia, at that time, she was just starting to take off. After the podcast episode, she went like super viral, not because of me, just because of whatever else she was doing. But then people started listening to her back catalog, and they started hearing my episode. And I literally got approached for people wanting to work with me just from doing this one interview. And so my light bulbs went off, and I said, whoa, what if I went out and got on more podcasts? And so I tried doing that, but I found that it was really difficult to come up with lists of all the podcasts I could be on. It just was really boring for me. And a lot of the time, not many people wrote back. So I didn't get to go on other people's podcasts. I really liked that one experience with Alia on the Spiritual Ship podcast. And I mean, it brought me direct business. But it was really hard to find other podcasts. And I think that was life telling me, you're good at chatting. You're good at, doing this sort of journalism thing, you call it, or interview thing, or education thing. But maybe you should try your own. And so I started the Blade and Chalice podcast, and I wrote the little jingle for it and everything. And of course, I had some microphones, I had some audio equipment. Actually, Vanessa had some in a storage locker that we ended up using. So we had a couple little supplies with us, and I made the podcast happen. And it was really cool because it allowed me to reach out to other people. And when you run a podcast and you're reaching out to people, it seems to be easier than people trying to, get on other people's podcasts. I just noticed that more people said yes, and it allowed me to have interesting conversations with people. And the other thing too is that being an interviewer, and sometimes we'd have a really good rapport, people started sharing the interviews. So the podcast started off with 10, 20 listens total, and eventually grew into hundreds. And of course, when I did the one with Oracle Girl, then things really exploded. So when I did the podcast with OG, after that, sort of the floodgates really opened, and I got exposed to more people in the purification space. And there's just a lot of parallels with the work that she was doing. And so that definitely helped things too. There was a few other, you could call them thought leaders or influential people that I interviewed that sort of brought their audience, and their audience then connected with me, or sometimes my audience would connect with them. So it was really cool because I'd interview somebody, and then they'd come back a couple months later and say, hey, after that interview, I got 3 new clients. And so I realized that what was really powerful for me, at least, was this information exchange, this dialogue, this journalism format. And when I realized that, the bells sort of went off, and I said, oh, eventually I want to do something really cool. I want to do like a live stream, and I want to like do it all the time. And, I want to make it a production with music and sound and be able to go like this and then have like drums, have fun, basically it was like the early dream of the spaceship, and which Octave Leap is, but I wasn't ready for it. I still didn't have enough revenue coming in. Of course, though, you give something a little more time. You give something as much time as it needs in order to thrive. And that eventually came. I started getting more and more clients. I started to get clients asking for the same type of training. And then I'd say, okay, well, what if I put some courses together and then let a group of people through it? So instead of doing one-on-one, I could do 1 to 8, 1 to 10, 1 to 12. And then on a per hour basis, it was a better deal, and I don't always have to see people. I can work behind the scenes, and I was having a lot of fun. Yeah. Like, Lee's saying this right here, having fun is key. Absolutely. all of the things that I was doing, some of them were an experiment. I had to see if I liked them, but I enjoyed them. I truly enjoyed all of the things that I was doing along the way. So having fun is a key thing. And what ended up happening was I just kept following these different areas that I enjoyed. Like I had been more into spirituality. I was doing sort of, healing work with removing imprints and sort of clearing energy and that type of thing. I was using astrology as a coaching tool. I still do a little bit of that, but I realized I didn't want to see 20 people a week. I'm happy to see 4 or 5. And so scaling back made me enjoy the coaching aspect more. But I also enjoyed doing online education. But again, I didn't always like running courses. So I realized that if I do a little bit of coaching and some courses, that works really nicely. And then Vanessa and I started to do these live soundscapes, and it was a way to bring the music back into the fold. And we started doing them by donation. So they had a really clean, energetic feel. And as a result of that, a lot of people started to become part of the community. And I realized that whatever I was involved with, it was a lot of the same people coming out just because they liked the vibe. They liked the people that were attracted. They liked the dialogues. They liked sort of the frequency of the things that I facilitate. And so that was an important realization for me. It's like, wow, the thing I'm actually doing here is building community and nourishing the bonds of community. And that isn't necessarily a business model, but it's a very important role. And as a result of that, there's many little things I do to earn a living, and I have multiple sort of income streams, but facilitating and building community and nurturing community is the main thing that I feel like I do now. And from that, if somebody asks me what I do, it's always sort of like a difficult answer because I'm like, well, I do this is, but I would say that is what I do. And through that, life supports me. And the other thing about life supporting me with that too is I just want to say, when it comes to money, a lot of people in business will throw out numbers. They'll say, if you do this, you'll be 7-figure. If you do this, you'll be 8-figure, or you'll be 6-figure. And so people end up connecting with this idea of money first. And for me, it's never the amount. What's more important is, do I feel like I have all the resources available to do what I need to do? Do I spend as little time as possible worrying about money or thinking about money? That's wealth. I don't need flashy things. I don't need flashy cars. In fact, a lot of the money that I earn just goes back into this business that then allows me to create more content for people to then take on. So it recycles back into itself anyway. It allows me to have a bit of production value. It allows me to show up more regularly because, this is voluntary. It takes me time to put together these live streams, and I love doing them, and I'm supported by the other things that happen. So there's a great deal of fluidity. It's not necessarily like, I sell one product, and if I sell 100 units of that product, I make X amount. It's not how it works for me. I do a number of different things. As some of you know, I work with cryptocurrency. And for me, cryptocurrency has been very profitable. I don't want to talk about it today because last week, I know a lot of people took a real big hit. But I will just say that there is a certain way to work with it that doesn't involve having to directly market, having to directly promote oneself or get clients. And so that's a way that I can earn a living on my own and not have to worry about money. And then another category is having passive things for sale. So things on my website, music, courses, videos, that type of thing. I don't really promote, but people find it and it just sort of sells on its own. And then another area is sort of stable coaching clients or people that come to see me quite regularly. And then finally, running courses or workshops. So those are basically the different income streams, and I just let them work as they need to. And as a result of that, it's greatly improved my relationship to wealth and money. Lee's saying here, she's right in on this one. This is my experience as well. High quality coaching, not high quantity, plus educating people by connecting them to their own creative source. Exactly. And there's a big difference between doing things consciously and doing things in the 3D world. In many ways, it's easier to make money if you just follow the old system 3D way of doing business. But for us who are on this other frequency, we physically cannot do that. It doesn't work with our system. For me, it doesn't work to do, Facebook ads, for instance. It doesn't work for me. I can't do that. I can't go in and, use analytics to manipulate and retarget people and all that kind of weird stuff that goes on behind the scenes. Doesn't feel good to me. For me, it just feels like authentically building community, sharing things. And, if I do have something for sale, of course I'm going to promote it. And it's always a dialogue. I mean, if somebody comes to me and says, hey, I can't afford your offering, I'll say, okay, come approach me and we'll have a chat about it. We'll figure out what will work for you, and we'll go from there. And if it's not a fixed price and it's donation based, well, then people can choose what works for them. So it's never about, you need to pay a certain amount to be included. It's always like, no, I want you to be part of it. I do need some money to live, but we'll figure out what works for you. And it's a much more relaxed, much more easygoing and fluid relationship with money. And funny enough, being like that allows more ease and allows more abundance than being a stickler with money. Sometimes people are, oh, I've got to raise my prices, or I've got to lower my prices. Oh, I've got to lower my prices to help everyone because people can't afford my services. Is one way people think. Another way people think is I've got to raise my prices so that I become more exclusive and I attract more premium clients. And that one really irks me because sometimes, there's people who charge exuberant amounts. And I'm talking, $500, $600, $700 an hour, or $1,000 an hour. And they don't have the training. They just basically buy a kit that says they need to, sell stuff to premium clients. And they take like a 2-week course, and then they're charging these amounts because it's all about perception. And that's the old way of doing business, where it's about scarcity and it's about optics and it's about illusion. The new way is completely about frequency, openness, communication, honesty, connection, relationships. I have so many ongoing dialogues with the same people over and over because these people aren't just customers. They're not clients. I feel like they're family. I haven't even met some of these people because a lot of them are in, Europe or in North America, but there's these deep, deep bonds of connection, and these, it just runs so deep. And, I hear from them, and I do have to set a boundary sometimes because I can't have 150 people, messaging me every day. Otherwise it just becomes overwhelming. But nurturing community has been my way of doing it. Okay. That's me personally. That's my story. For this second part, I actually want to get into the top 5 things that I've gleaned from this experience. Okay, so I want to share with you things that I feel are things that everybody should look at doing if they're interested in up-leveling and upscaling a conscious business. Okay, so I'm going to I'm going to go ahead here and post these. So number 1 is, here we go. Realize you can learn valuable skills much faster and cheaper than college or university. Okay. So when I learned this was electrifying for me. So I got a subscription to something called LinkedIn Learning. It cost me $35 a month. And for about 4 or 5 months, I just pummeled this thing. I was getting my money's worth out of it. There's a little indicator bar for how many hours of content you watched. I think I was watching 40 or 50 hours worth. So I did like condensed courses in Photoshop, motion graphics, video editing, animation, branding. I even took some business stuff just for fun, some website stuff, some marketing courses. They just literally have all these courses. They're kind of got a little bit of a corporate feel to them, but they teach you the fundamental skills. And then I noticed something interesting. So the fundamentals I could learn on LinkedIn Learning for $35 a month. And then if I went and I understood the fundamentals, and this could be in a skill I just learned 2 weeks ago, I could go into YouTube and find an artist or somebody whose style I really dug and had a really cool artistic flair. And then I could do almost like I could check out some of their videos and use that as like a masterclass to kind of add the polish off the fundamentals. So the fundamentals I learned from taking, these LinkedIn learning classes, or Udemy is another good place to go. And then I'd go and I'd polish them with these master classes. And occasionally, really occasionally, I'd find somebody who is amazing on YouTube. And I'm like, oh man, I wish they had more videos. They didn't have more videos, but they had a course, and the courses could be anywhere from $50 to $200. But I'd sign up for one of their courses and then learn some specific skill in greater detail. So all in all, I think I spent during that 4-month period, maybe $250 total on such a powerful education. Oh, another thing I was learning was copywriting. So how to write well, how to write in a clear, concise way, so that when I'm going to write emails or I'm going to write social media posts, they're always coming across exactly how I want to express them and in a way that connects with people. So there's a couple things there that keep things conversational, and that's really, really powerful. So the thing I avoided, because I've got my fingers burned with, and I hope you don't do this either, is avoid the hyped up business marketing gurus. Occasionally, there's something okay on Facebook that gets advertised to you, but most of that stuff is crap. Most of that stuff is people who literally, they come in and they promise you 6, 7, 8 figures, whatever it is. They're promising you money. And what they're selling you is a copy paste strategy that, first of all, doesn't feel authentic. Second of all, it only gives you enough to kind of get the idea of it, and then you have to buy the next thing. And they always structure it in the same way. There's like a $49 entry point. Then you have to upgrade to the $179 offer. Then it's a $699, and then there's a $2,500 masterclass, and then there's a $20,000 seminar with this business guru or something like that. And it's there to, you're the product. They're there to make money, and they're there to make money off of you, and they're selling you something that you can probably find for free if you spend a little bit more time digging around online. With that said, sometimes if you pay a small amount of money for somebody who says, I've got a bit of experience and I've gone and I've saved you 50 hours of learning and I put it in 4 hours, well, that could be worth your time. If you pay $50 to save yourself, 46 hours of finding this in different areas, a course like that could be very beneficial. So it's knowing the difference between the hyped up marketing, the thing that's just all marketing, all glamour and no substance, versus something that actually has substance and has a reasonable price tag associated with it. Okay, so that's all I've got to say for the first one. Remember that no matter where you're at, you can learn new skills and you can upgrade yourself and you can figure out any of those areas. Later on in business, when you have earned a little bit of money, you might want to outsource them to professionals. For instance, now I get professional people to actually design a lot of the things like thumbnails, like my background, like the various things you see with this production. I have professional people. It saves me time. It allows me to work less, and it allows the quality to be much higher, because we can't be everything and all the time. It's just not possible. Okay. Okay. So Kirsty's saying, I found an amazing guy on YouTube, Tyler Moore, and learned how to build my own website in an hour. There you go. So anybody who might need to learn how to build a website in an hour, you've got a lead right there. Go check it out. Thanks, Kirsty. That's awesome. Okay. So I'm going to go now into strategy number 2 here. So that was a big one for me. So this one is another one, okay? And we talked about this last week with Ayla when she was on the show. Use platforms, and especially paid ones, that match your value. Because if you're giving money to someone, you need to make sure that you're not supporting something you don't align with, okay? I'll give you an example of that. I use Facebook. I use Instagram, kind of, not really a lot. If you go on Instagram, I've got like 88 followers. On Facebook, I've got like 4. So it's just there as a way for people to find me. I don't ever give them money for advertising, because I do not want to support what's behind them. I don't want to pay into that, right? I will, there's transitional ethics until there's better social media platforms where people hang out. Unfortunately, some of my audience is on these platforms, and I've chosen to use them until something better comes out. So, that way I don't get my head all wrapped up in, oh my God, am I supporting, the system and blah, 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 blah. No. Okay. I just basically say, you know what? I'm using this for now. Eventually I won't. Simple as that. When it comes to paid ones, I want to make sure that I'm using platforms and paying for things that are going to respect my data, that are not going to censor me, that are going to allow me to say what I need to say. So the choice to use, for instance, my podcast and host that on a paid site was a great one, because on my podcast, I can say whatever words I want and I can talk about whatever I want. YouTube, sure enough, I can't say whatever I want on here. If I say certain words, maybe the episode gets taken down. I'm also not giving them money, and I won't give them money. So that's an important thing. The other important thing about using platforms is that this is where you're going to find your audience. So if you feel this way, if you have a certain set of values, chances are the people that you connect with are going to have similar values, and they're going to be on similar platforms. If you hate Facebook, completely hate it, but you try to use it and you try to find your people, you're probably not going to find your people there because you don't like it. And therefore the things you value are also going to be mirrored by the other people who share similar values, and they're not going to want to be on Facebook because they don't like it either. That's just an example. Finally, the best thing to do is to create your own. So, create your own website, find a hosting company that allows you as much freedom as possible, and direct people to your website. Direct people to your mailing list, and choose a mailing provider, an email provider that allows you to say whatever you want and doesn't censor you. Because when you have that direct connection with your audience and with people, it's much more powerful. You set the terms. When it's on social media all the time, on Facebook or Instagram, or I don't even know some of these newer ones, they're too crazy for me. But you're competing against, a very, very poor quality of attention that people have on these platforms because they're distracted by everything else. But if you can email someone directly, or you can bring them to your website and your website's set up beautifully, then you're going to have their full attention. So that's number 2. Here's another one. You're probably going to have to experiment a lot with what works, and don't fear experimentation. I think a lot of people get in this mindset that whatever they do, they have to do it perfect. And there's a certain type that never ends up getting started because they're perfectionists. Okay, cool. So I just want to say, first of all, Sharon's saying, this is valuable, how to navigate while we're transitioning with flexibility and integrity. Exactly. Otherwise, we get into these situations like, oh, I can't do this, I can't do that. And we feel like our hands are tied. We can never really get started. And this is another area where people struggle to get started because they take way too long in actually generating some form of income. And money is really currency. It's a current saying, okay, this deserves to be supported, whether that's for, good or ill. That's what currency is telling us. So try to create a paid or donation-based offering as efficiently as possible, because there's one great question we want to answer with that. And that's, do other people want to pay for what you have to offer? You can think you've got the greatest thing in the world, but if other people don't need it, what good really does it serve? If you have to do a lot of convincing people that they need this, there's probably some tweaks you have to make. You might not be completely back to the drawing board, but there's some adjustments you need to make. And I can tell you one thing, the market is extremely good at telling you if your idea works or not, and will give you a very direct mirror and hold it right in your face as to what you need to adjust. Your critics, the people who criticize you, are going to be the ones where the greatest lessons are learned. Thankfully, working in this arena of high frequency people, it's very seldom that I get, nasty critics. Occasionally I get a comment. Mostly it's just spam on Instagram or YouTube. I just get, ads for NFT collections or, some real obscene internet thing that just anybody's getting. But actual negative feedback, not really. Constructive criticism, occasionally I do get that. Yeah, absolutely. And I listen, I take it to heart because I know that the market is very good at helping us, letting us know. It's sort of like universal law letting us know if something works. Oh, I've got a visitor on the show today, and this is Vanessa's there off in the corner of the spaceship with Phoenix Rose.
Are you on the show?
Yeah.
What are you doing?
I'm talking about how to, what am I talking about, guys? I'm talking about how to create your online business and my experience and the 5 main tips that I learned along the way. Yeah. Vanessa normally knows these things, but she's got mama brain and she was on a call for 2 hours. So she probably just completely lost track of time. Do you want me to show them the boom boom though? I'll be done in about half an hour or so. Yeah. But I've got another visitor right here. Hello. Oh yeah. This is Daddy's favorite. This is why I run my business, so that this one can have an amazing life and she can do whatever she wants. Oh, she's a little bundle of joy.
Yeah, Tuesdays you do Authentically.
Yeah. Here you go. That was a little improv thing, and
I completely have mama brain.
yeah. So she had mama brain. So anyway, back to creating a paid donation-based offering as efficiently as possible. Let the market tell you if your idea works. So try to have what in business they call it a minimum viable product. But I would just say try to do something. So what's the minimum you do? Set up a website, offer some sort of service, have some sort of payment thing. If you're a coach, let's say, if you're selling a product, maybe you have to ship it manually. You just need a simple website, order form, that type of thing. The other thing that's really good about this is when you start to get income from a small venture, so starting small and having a way to collect income, you can then start to reinvest it into your business. And you can use it to then maybe hire somebody to help you out so you don't have to work as much. In the beginning, you will probably work a lot more. And then over time, you will find little tweaks and ways to make your business more efficient. And so when you earn a little bit of income and money, whether that's in cryptocurrency or in dollars, euros, or whatever, that opens the doors to being able to find that support that you may need so that you can find the work-life balance that works for you. Okay, we got some cool comments here. What techniques do you use to manage your time, especially when working across? Okay, this is a cool one. I'm gonna take this one right here. Hey Dave, what techniques do you use to manage your time, especially when working across various projects, self-care, and family life? Thanks. This I'm going to talk about next week because I'm going to do an episode on the 4-hour work week. That's going to be cool. This idea of the 4-hour work week. I'll say one of the best things that I do, Phil, is first of all, for me personally, I have the tendency to overcommit and take on too much. So I intentionally look at everything I've got going and I scale back. Okay. And then I put more emphasis on the projects that I'm working with. I use a piece of software that I highly recommend. It's called Notion. And Notion is sort of like you can build your own organizer and you can customize it in the way you need to. And so using Notion, I have a way that I can share it with my team and I can basically integrate. And so they have their task list up there. They have a calendar for live shows. So being organized in that way has been immensely helpful. The other thing with that is that I've set up my to-do list in a way that works really, really well. And so the way that I do my list is a couple things. So I write down all the things I want to get done. Then I rate them as if they're urgent, non-urgent, important, or not important. Okay. So that I know how important is this? Is this a priority or is this not a priority? The other thing that I do with that is I have a due date, like the date that task is due, but then I also have a date that I'm going to complete the task. So that way, if I have, stuff that's due in the next month, I can organize it and I can do little pieces of the task each day. And then I don't just have a giant list of stuff. Oh my God, I've got such a big list, but I've got a list that I've actually slotted in that works with the amount of time that I've allocated. So maybe I'll do a little bit more on that next week. I'll actually kind of open up my task list and show you guys how I use Notion in a really incredible way to keep organized, to keep on the ball, to keep really efficient with that. And I actually went and I actually studied some time management tools at one point, because I said, you know what, I'm not being efficient with my time. So I really want to learn ways that I can, so that I can continue working less and having a very high output. The other thing with that too is, if you can, limit your distractions. So I often leave my phone on like silent, like sleep mode when I'm working. And I only use chats and messengers during certain times of the day, just so that I don't have distractions sort of for my attention, because for me, it can take me a little while to get back on task. Okay, another question or another comment here from Kitty. She's asking, Dave, can you tell me a little bit more about the donation-based business? Donations have an old world frequency, and I mean, okay, not charitable donations. That's important thing. Even the word donation, I do find it a little bit problematic, because it implies that, you know, you have to give something to someone who has less or something like that. For me, I prefer to call it pay what you want, or, you know, choose your contribution. I like those. They're ordinary language. You know, some people use the gift economy, that type of thing. Cool. But I like this idea, or sliding scale. But when you give people the power to choose how much they want to pay, that's another way of telling you how people perceive what you offer and how they value it. So very, very, very powerful thing. And also giving people that power to choose is incredibly, people are usually very grateful. It's a very rewarding experience. It doesn't feel like you're treating people like a commodity. It doesn't feel like a transaction anymore. It feels more like I'm giving what I love to do, and you're showering me with how much you value that by using this medium of exchange, whatever that is. So I hope that answers your question, Kitty. All right. So the next thing I want to go on to here is, this is where we get a little bit more closer to where we were at last week. By the way, last week's interview with Ayla, that was amazing. That was such a good one. So if you haven't seen it after this one, after this live stream, I would highly recommend going back and watching it, because she just gave so much gold on that one. And this ties right into that. And if you want more specifics on this, or said in a different way, that's the interview to watch. But running your business in a way that honors your energy, I cannot tell you how important this one is. This is the most important one. If you need to know how your energy works, it's a good idea to go to see maybe somebody who can read human design, read astrology. That's why I do that, to be honest. I read human design and astrology, and I help people with their gene keys just sort of at the beginning. I get them started on that journey, and I look at all three of them to help them understand how their energy works, and maybe create a dialogue around what direction they want to take things. So that process of self-illumination and self-understanding and having that self-knowledge from the outset is extremely important, because there's questions that are going to come up. And if you don't know this about yourself, then you're going to try to emulate from other people, and they might not work. For instance, one thing we talked about last week with Ayla is, if somebody has a lot of defined centers in their body, they're going to have a really strong sense of who they are, why they're here, and they're going to be a presence. So they might be the type of person who just does one thing and sticks with it and gets really, really, really good. On the other hand, somebody without any defined centers, or with very few defined centers, might be more fluid. And they might be, oh, I gravitate towards this, and now I gravitate towards this, and there's a connection between these two things. And maybe I'm going to bring this third thing in. And they're going to be people who, might think of themselves as a jack of all trades and a master of none. But, that, I think, that is problematic, because people use that to limit themselves. I prefer to say, I'm a deep generalist. I dive into things that I'm extremely passionate about, and I get as much information as I need, and then I allow my passion to draw me to wherever I need to go next. And then I end up blending these things. It's kind of like in science. If you get like an expert in an area, you get like an expert in materials, like material structure and density and stuff. On their own, in isolation, that doesn't mean anything. They need to be talking multidisciplinary. They need to talk to other people to figure out the real world application. When I used to be in engineering, I used to know a lot about groundwater and how things are transported through groundwater and through different river systems, but I didn't know the biological implications of it. So, I'd have to speak to a biologist, and we'd have to sit down, the biologist and me, and I'd have to figure out, okay, is this going to hurt frogs? Is this going to hurt the wetland? Like these are the levels of contaminants in the water, but you're the biology expert. So being able to have these multidisciplinary understandings of things is very powerful. And so there's people who connect dots, and there's people who create dots or create posts. So knowing if you're the kind of person who does one thing very well, or you're the kind of person who does many things. If I'm running a show and it's a variety show and we're talking about a bunch of different themes, you can probably guess that I'm a fairly fluid person. So I also, as you know, right now at this time in life, as you just saw, I have a child. I feel like working a max of 4 hours a day allows me to have family time, allows me to exercise, allows me time for reflection, social time. I need a lot of me time. I need a lot of family time to keep my family happy. My daughter, I spend a lot of time with her. I spend a lot of time with Vanessa. I want to be a part of these formative years, and work should not be the excuse. I don't think anybody lies on their deathbed and saying, oh, I should have worked more and spent less time with their family. No one does that. No one says that. The other thing too is that when you take more time for reflection, that's where you fill up your genius cylinder and you get the great ideas. Charles Darwin, who came up with that awful theory of evolution that we're just like, oh my God, that's so outdated. He actually came up with another amazing theory that I wish he was more well known for. Charles Darwin was a huge proponent of working very efficiently. And he used to say he worked a maximum of 6 hours a day. And his day would consist of in the morning getting up and having a breakfast, working for 3 hours. And then he'd go and he'd spend multiple hours out in the garden or walking around or doing something. And then he'd have another 3 hour block or 2 hour block where he'd actually do creative work. So he'd get done his stuff that he needed to do early in the day. Then he'd take a big long walk, and then he'd go out and he'd do more creative work. And so, he was priming the cylinder to do creative work by doing that. These are the little efficiencies that are really, really powerful. And knowing how your energy works specifically will allow you to fill up that cylinder better. Maybe before you can work for the day, you need to get up and you need to go for a run. You need to go take a cold plunge or a cold shower. You need to sit down and, check in with people in your life first, and then you can get going. Or maybe you like to get straight to work. I don't know. You need to know that. That's for you, and that's a very personal thing. The other thing, too, is the biggest test for if you're serving your purpose. And, this purpose thing is a really conflated idea. But are you passionate? Do you enjoy what you're doing? Because does it give you energy to do what you're doing? Do you feel like you can go at it for hours? Now, obviously, if you're coaching and you're dealing with other people, there's going to be a limit to that. You're probably going to need a break from other people's energy. Just in general, you're going to need time to sort of decondition and depressurize from working intensely with people. So that's, there is a limit to that. But if you're doing something that's just you, let's say, or something constructive, does it feed you? Does it give you lots of energy? If you notice you're getting drained, you're getting frustrated, it's probably a sign that you've outgrown the thing and you need to do something else, or you need to find a way to shift that relationship with the thing. Our passion is a very good indicator of if we're doing the right thing for us. And another thing too is our passion feeds our ability to be a genius in a certain area, be extraordinary at something in our own little way. So that, the natural flow of your energy also determines your marketing style. And I'll give you a good example of that. Not everybody can go out there and go, hey, I've got the greatest thing and it's amazing and it's going to change your life. And, go write emails and post on social media all the time. Some people like that. I like that in limited quantities. I like to talk about things when I want to talk about things and otherwise stay quiet. Some people, though, they hate doing any of that. And they just want to do their thing. They want to be an expert. and for the experts, if they're really, really, really good at something, for them, word of mouth is going to be extremely powerful. So if they over deliver for a couple initial clients and those clients go, wow, I felt like I was so supportive, or when I bought this product, the customer service was incredible and they gave me, this extra thing and it was really amazing. They'll go and they'll tell people, they'll do the marketing for you. So experts are often people like, they might have a complete crap website and they might not have any of these tools. But what they have is they have a very strong network of people, doing their promotion for them, word of mouth. And I know people like this, that, they'll make an occasional social media post and it will be so succinct and it will exude such brilliance that they don't have to post all the time. They don't have to manipulate algorithms or anything like that. They just make one post and there's a huge amount of interaction because they have weight, they have presence, they really understand their craft, they're masterful with their craft. And so that is a very powerful way for some people. For other people, it's being relatable. So other people understand sort of the pains that most people face, and they are able to, at any point in time, know kind of what's going on, have a temperature of how things are collectively with people, and then say things that are very poignant. And these type of people are going to be a little bit more visible. Okay, I'm just going to check the comments before moving on. Cool. All right, so Leah's saying, where human design and astrology meet, in which planet in the house specific channel or gate is located, that says a lot about your working style. So there you go. See, even Leah agrees with me, and she's got one heck of a human design course. I'm going to have her on the show at some point. So I'm glad she's tuned in now because I want to chat human design with her. And we have her intro to human design course on Modern Mystics, which it's the best value course I think is out there on human design. It's absolutely incredible. And she knows this very well. Okay. So listen to the rest later. Okay, cool. Yeah, I understand. Busy day. No worries. I've got a little bit more. Actually, I've got some really, really cool stuff I want to get into here. So here we go. The next thing up here is, and this is the last one, but this isn't probably as groundbreaking as honor your energy, but it's very important. So stay committed to one thing and giving it time to blossom. Okay. So you might do many things, but you need to actually invest enough time with one thing that it blossoms, it bears fruit, right? Often we plant the seed, we water the seed a bit, and when the seed doesn't become a tree and start giving us fruit, we abandon it. So we don't know often at the outset how long things take. And I'll just tell you a little bit of, my story is, when I did the Blade and Chalice podcast, I liked doing those episodes. And in the beginning, I was getting 10 or 20 people listening to the first couple ones. And I'd still just keep doing them because I knew I enjoyed them and I knew it takes time to develop them. And I agreed I was going to do 3 episodes a month. And so I just kind of stuck to that schedule and I just kept going and going and going. And when I got in the hang of the routine of creating podcasts, I had more time of finding ways to post in relevant groups, advertise the podcast a little bit just by sharing it and just by sharing sort of what was in that episode. And slowly things grew. And then I found if I had a guest on the podcast, asking them to share the interview with their following also brought in more listeners. And so it began to grow. And all I had to do was stay committed. Because once I got the hang of creating podcast episodes, it became much quicker, much less energy was expended. Always it's hardest to do things at the beginning. And then over time, I could focus on other areas, which in this case was finding ways to attract more people. And I watched episodes went from 10 to 20 to 70, 80 to 100 to 200 to 300 to 500 to some episodes are well over 1,000. And so really, I had to just give that time to grow and to form its own momentum. Most people feel way too discouraged early on when they don't see results and they give up. But that time when they gave up is usually the time where where they've got the initial hang of things, they can take the training wheels off and they can focus on the next aspect of it. If you go look at some of these really big YouTube influencers and you go back and you scroll all the way down to like maybe their first video, you'll see how like often what it was their first video, not a lot of views, not a lot of production. It looks kind of like just like somebody doing a video log in front of a camera, and not even with good lighting or anything. But you'll see that there was slowly over time, they begin to do more videos, but there's a consistency, there's a rhythm. And that rhythm is going to be different for everyone else. But you'll see that as they stuck to that rhythm, they got more views. And eventually, when they got more views, they got better production. And then when they got better production, they got even more views. And then so it creates a feedback loop. So one thing at a time. The first thing is deciding what you want to do, what you can stick with, whether that's blogging, whether that's running a podcast, whether that's creating videos or content. Maybe it's posting on social media or sharing something. But it's got to be something that feels good to you and that you can commit to whatever schedule that is. And Ayla, for instance, who I had on last week, basically said, I just go with wherever I feel like. Well, for me, it's very important to have a regular schedule. For me, it's very important to do the Octave Leap show every single Tuesday at the same time. The reason is because I'm by nature lazy. And I would want to do the show, but if I didn't commit to doing it by any certain time, I just keep pushing it off and off and off and off and off and off indefinitely into the future. And then it would just end up being an idea and not an actual podcast that I was actively feeding, or live stream that I was actively feeding. So pick one regular form of expression or outreach and find a schedule that works for you. And actually, when I was in my learning days, I watched I took like a 2-hour, 3-hour course on branding. And that was the only thing I got out of that whole thing was, okay, cool, just stick to one thing. And that is the best voice, expression, branding. You'll figure out how to grow your audience over time. If you don't, I mean, sometimes you see this people who do things over and over and over and over and over and over again. If you're not getting results over time and you stay in the same stuck pattern, even though you're committing to that, that's an indication you need to tweak something. That, you need to actually adjust that. Everything sort of is in flux. And good things take time to develop, but it's important to look at this and go, is this stagnating? Okay, so I hope that these 5 tips have been helpful for people. And if you have any questions, please let me know. Because these are the 5 things that I've used that when I stuck to these and I applied them, they really allowed my business to grow and thrive. And, giving it time is one of those things. Even though I've done a lot of things, I'm a fairly fluid person. I sort of migrate with my passions in the various areas that it flows, and then later bring them all together. I still stayed committed to the project or to the idea. And that is extremely important. All right, so please put up some comments. If there are no comments, though, I do want to have a giveaway this week. Because there's something I'm going to say that's going to be fairly counterintuitive. And that is right now, their crypto interest is at an all-time low, or at least a regional low. No one's talking about it. The markets are down. The markets all over the world are down. And it's actually the best time to learn crypto and get in because there's the most upside potential and the least downside potential. And so I know a lot of people are, wondering what to do, and they're exploring this idea of cryptocurrency, and they want to dip their toes in, but they don't know how. That's why I created this course, Crypto Revolution. And I'd like to give away one free copy of this today to somebody who's on the show. Also, the markets got rocked last week, and we're running this again for the exact time we're in. And it's a fun, interactive course, and it will get you excited about economic sovereignty and teach you ways to build that prosperity ethically and simply. Not only that, but we have an amazing community. And so why not get ahead of the curve of central bank digital currencies, of some sort of economic disaster, learn this language, learn how to be your own bank, and be part of a new community and economy. We have a hell of a lot of fun. And actually, most of the people in this live stream are from Crypto Revolution. So I'd love to give away one copy of this to somebody who's present today. And if you don't win, by the way, there's a link to take the course below. And I like to earn $675 to run the course, but if you can't afford that, just let me know. We'll have a discussion about that. Like I say, the way that I do business is about people. It's about community and building community and fostering those bonds. So it's important for me that people feel included. So is anybody on the stream right now want to get themselves an enrollment? Okay, Susan, I've got to choose you. And I'm going to put this up here. Yes, please, for a friend of mine who can't afford the course. Susan has asked for this every time I've given away a free crypto revolution. And I said, Susan, you've already taken it. Can we give it to somebody? And then she said, oh, it's for a friend. And so this time she's like, I need it for my friend. And I am so supportive of that. You are such a generous, kind-hearted person, Susan. So you know where to find me, admin@octaveleap.com, and we'll get your friends signed up for the next Crypto Revolution course. Now, if you've taken Crypto Revolution and you want to take this new version of it, shoot me an email, and you can email me, of course, anytime, admin@octaveleap.com. And shoot me an email, and there's a special upgrade for people who've already taken the course. But this is really, we have a tremendous amount of fun. We build a community. Actually, most of the community I'm building didn't come from astrology or spiritual work. It came, funnily enough, from cryptocurrency. People really, really feel energized by economic sovereignty and doing it as a group and moving as a group and rolling with the punches as a group and having successes and victories as a group. And for me, how this relates to running my own business is, well, first of all, I get to be part of this community and create a community and facilitate it. Secondly, I get to enjoy trading and investing and different strategies. And you don't always have to trade and be part of this, but I enjoy it. It works for my brain and my setup. So for me, I have a lot of fun doing cryptocurrency, and it's a passion. And actually, it's one of the longest standing passions in the last few years that I've found. I haven't just said, I'm bored of this and I want to move on. I've said that with other things, though. There's certainly been things I've done that I've moved on from. But, like animation is one of those. I said, okay, this takes too long, too much work. I'm not going to be an animator. Crypto's still awesome, even though the markets are down. All right. So, yes, Susan is very happy. And I just hope you guys enjoyed this show. If you have any more questions, please put them in the chat. If you're watching this later, you can also put the questions in the comments below. And because I love building community, I make an effort to answer all of the comments on these live streams. So please know I will read all of your comments later and be more than happy to message back. All right. I think that's enough for today. This has been a lot of fun doing this episode. And it's allowed me to share some of my wins with people. And I hope you found this extremely valuable. So until next week, and next week we're doing the 4-hour work week, how to really manage that work-life balance. It's going to be an awesome show. Don't miss it. Same time, same day. Take care.
This is Octave Leap. Innovation, regeneration, and human optimization.